I heard this quote from you that I love. Leadership is communicating vision, trying to marshal people in a direction, reminding them of what God is calling them to, helping them endure the valley and take the hills. How do you communicate that vision to the team in a way that sticks?
The way the vision sticks is by making it sticky. And stickiness to me is where you are connecting the dots on the daily from this is what we're doing right now, this is how this fits in the big picture. And I think that's what every good leader has to figure out. It's not about, hey, we just did something great. That's our purpose. Now let's all go back to the grind. We work so hard in our organization to do everything we do. And I think, like Ramsey Solutions, great organizations make amazing things look easy. But nothing is easy. Nothing great in life is easy. And so we work really hard. Passion does not just happen because we put out a flag and say, hey, we're going to meet in the stadium in a few months. What it takes to get there is extraordinarily difficult, but it's getting in the little cracks and crevices and trying to tell the stories in the crack and crevice of how this is changing the big story and the big narrative. And I think it's not just the, hey, we had an all-team meeting today and cast a big vision. I'm sure everybody's going to be inspired. It's trying to get down in the littlest thing and say, see how what you're doing is impacting what we're doing, and see how what you're doing is impacting this person's life. And if you can do that in the littlest places, the smallest places, the little cracks, then the vision is sticking, and it's sticking in the right place.
Do you have a recent example of something that happened with your team where you had to communicate that and it either stick or it didn't stick?
Well, I think that I'm trying to think of a specific example right now, but it's COVID, so none of our minds are working super great. But I think it's connecting a dot. We do every team meeting we do what we call Jesus stories. And so we start every meeting with tell a story about somebody whose life has been changed or impacted because of what we've done. And I know for me, we just came from a big student event that we did with several thousand students, one of whom just finished her freshman year in college and celebrated while we were at the event the 2-year anniversary of losing her dad and her leg in a jet ski accident. And on the day that they woke her up from a 4-day coma to tell her that her leg was missing, and then she quickly noticed and surveyed the room and asked, "Where's Dad?" And they told her that her dad was in heaven. One of our team was standing right there, and he was in the role that he needed to be in that day as a leader of our team, to be in a very difficult spot that no one can be fully prepared or trained for. But he showed up and he was present in that moment. And as we were sitting together a few days ago, he, her, Shelley, my wife, and myself, and his wife, and we were just recounting the journey we've all been on for 2 years. It was easy for me then to go back to him and to 2 people on his team later and say, so when we're in these little spaces, some of them are hard, some of them are easy, some of them people see, some of them people don't see. Here's how that impacts someone's life. And then here she was sharing with 4,000 or 5,000 people for the first time ever in 2 years about God's faithfulness in her life.
Wow.
And it wasn't a polished presentation. It wasn't, hey, here's the 3 things that you need to do if you're going through a hard time or a hard season or not believing you're going to make it one more minute. But it was God is bigger. And it probably did more to impact the lives of people that week than all the amazing messages that were shared by all the great speakers. So it's taking that moment and then going back into another difficult moment that someone is in right now and trying to draw that line and say, see, these moments make a difference. And sometimes you don't see it till 2 years later or 22 years later. But what you're doing matters, and if you hang in there long enough, you're going to see it on earth, but you're definitely going to see it in heaven.
Yeah, it reminds me of a lot of the things that we do here at Ramsey. You know, Dave gets up there on stage in staff meeting with all 1,000 team members every Monday, and he'll read an email that came in about someone whose life changed, someone who met Christ because they went through Financial Peace University, or we see the debt-free screams on the Ramsey show every day, and it reminds you of the vision every single day. And so I think for the business owners, what are you doing in your day to day that is making it stick with your team? What are those rhythms that you can put in place?
Yeah, and the owner probably is getting that story. It's whether or not we're doing a good job of communicating that story. And you guys are doing that fantastic here by making it visible to the whole organization. But you also are, it's quasi in the entertainment business. And so if somebody owns an auto parts store, they're probably going to bump into somebody and they're going to say, hey, you know what, when you did that thing and worked on my transmission, blah, 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 and it saved this money, and because of that, my kid got to do whatever. And the owner's typically going to go, well, thanks for sharing that with me. But we got to take the next step to go into the guy who actually worked on the transmission and say, I want you to know what I just heard. I got handed a napkin in a restaurant a few weeks ago about this book, and it's not a promo for the book, but a guy came over, said, I don't want to interrupt your meal because there's a big story about that in the book. And he was making a joke. He said, I don't want to be that guy. But he just put a napkin on the table and he said, thank you so much. And he walked away, and I read the napkin, and it said, thank you for this book. My daughter and I are reading it together. She's been going through a horrible battle with an eating disorder, and this is giving us practical ways to see victory come to her life. Well, I took the napkin to our all-team meeting, and I thanked 7, 8, 10, 15 people who you'll never know are responsible for this book and whose fingerprints are all over it. And I just said, hey, guys, I got the napkin, but your fingerprints are on the story. And each one of us who owns the business is typically going to get that story if it's a good business.
Yeah.
But it's taking the next step and not absorbing all that, but reflecting that. And that's what, one of the ways a vision sticks if you don't let it all stick on you. You don't go, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm amazing. I'm amazing. Yes, passion's amazing. But you go, hey, you are the one who did that. And they don't know how to thank you. They just knew how to thank me, but I know how to thank you. And I want to make sure that you understand where you fit in the story.